That expansion would have made all the difference. And obviously, in this case, gave us the money. Now, some of the other threads that run through the book, obviously, I spent quite a bit of time talking about the grassroots campaign that was here. And I just want to illuminate that a little bit. There is, I think, a popular belief that this started with some brilliant political strategy or tactic, by someone like me. It couldn't have been farther from the truth. This started as a dictate from Barack Obama in the very beginning, who said, hey, I want to run a grassroots campaign. I want volunteers involved. I've done that in my Senate race. This will be on a bigger scale. I want to try and bring people who can really distance from our government, from our politics, particularly young people. So that's what we set out to do. Now, as we got into it, his dictate ended up marrying up nicely with the reality that no one was supporting us in any of the states. Nope. Very few elected officials, political folks. It was just people. We had people. And there's a lot of discussion about the scale of what we built. And the scale has some importance. We started with maybe 10,000 email addresses top, we grew to 13 million. But it's what lays beneath it which is so important. And there were three very important ways that the grassroots volunteers, in many ways, made this campaign. And I'll start by saying this. This is the first time in presidential history, in the history of presidential politics, certainly in the modern era where you've got advertising, that volunteers were at the core of a campaign strategy. This is who we were. This wasn't a case of we're going to raise a bunch of money from political insiders and have a lot of great political strategy, do ads and sound bites, and if the volunteers materialize, that's great. They can send envelopes out. This was core to who we were. We meant it. We staffed it. We funded it. We thought about what it meant. So the volunteers obviously played a big role in our fundraising, and that's the thing that's gotten most attention. And it's important. We raised $750 million, 500 million of that online, 4 million Americans, average contribution $85. Many of them giving it over a period of months, if not 2 years, so they give it 10, 15 at a time. Top two categories of donors, not lobbyists, because we didn't take their money. For the first time in presidential history, someone didn't take money from lobbyists to pass. Not lawyers, not business people, retirees and students, two top categories of donors. And listen, we tried to build the most powerful campaigns in the history of politics in each state. Now think about that. Actually, in prior years, even the Bush campaigns, going back to Reagan, the actual campaigns in the battleground states have been very modest affairs. Partially that's because people have been in the public financing system. Partially it's because people's approach. They believed it was more of a national race, and the state results would somewhat follow. We did not believe that. We wanted to build the strongest possible campaign in each battleground state, so that the campaign itself might be worth 2, 3, 4, 5 points. And so in most states, Virginia, Florida, Indiana, Colorado, these were the most sophisticated, intense, heavily staffed, and most expensive campaigns ever to be run in those states, more so than any Senate race or any governor's race. And it made an enormous difference for us. And the generosity of our volunteers and donors made that happen. So that mattered. But the two other ways that our volunteers play crucial roles is not, I think, as well known or certainly celebrated. The second is the organizing. And why did we get 13 million people? Of course, a lot of people came in on their own to the website, but the vast majority of people got involved because someone else asked them to. Hey, I'm volunteering on the Obama campaign, or I checked out his website. You should too. We always thought the most likely reason a 45-year-old African-American man from Philadelphia would vote for the first time, of course he had to have some interest in Obama, would be because his friend or his cousin said, hey, I've never registered or voted in my life, but I am this time, and why don't you as well? That the most likely reason a 22-year-old kid would decide to spend their Friday night at the Obama office in Terre Haute, Indiana, is almost always because their friend or their brother said, I'm going to go down to the Obama office. Why don't you come with me? They built this. Our volunteers registered 6 million voters. They organized every precinct in America. There were many states on election day where, simply put, we had all the volunteers we needed. That's never happened before in American politics. They made this happen. They made this happen on the ground. So the organization did not materialize out of some techno-wizardry. It happened person by person. And in the beginning of the campaign, something I spent some time in the book, when we were spending all our time in Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina, as was Hillary, as was Edwards, Probably the most underappreciated reason why we won the primary was this. In Virginia, in Maryland, in D.C., in Minnesota, Colorado, and Missouri, before we had put any staff on the ground, before our eyes had really gazed to any of these states, our grassroots supporters were organizing them states on their own. They were gathering on our website, using our social networking technology, meeting offline. And miraculously, by the fall of 2007, Barack Obama, 2 years out of the Illinois State Senate, who didn't have political relationships in any of these states, was much better organized in all of them than the strongest frontrunner in the party's history. So our grassroots volunteers, because even if we won Iowa, if they had not done that and given us that head start, we would have gotten our comeuppance on February 5th on Super Tuesday, and our story would have ended there. So they made that happen. The last thing they did, and they're still doing, is they are delivering our message directly. We are able, when we send a campaign an email, or now, we reach directly well over 10 million Americans. Think about that. We built our own television network, but only better, because we can directly communicate with people without the snarky media filter. Directly. We reach more people when we send an email than on most nights watch NBC Nightly News and all the cables combined, including Fox. So, this has never been practical. And listen, this is the way so many people, particularly that Serge Obama electorate that everyone's been talking about, that's how they communicate. We get information from each other these days, particularly younger people. They obviously see a video they like on YouTube, they email it, they see a news story, they like something else, they send it around, they communicate with it on social networking sites. We wanted to light that fuse, we wanted to empower people to be out there, living parts of their lives through this campaign. To spread our positive message, yes, but it was in moments of challenge when we were attacked that we thought this was most important. When Sarah Palin said, Barack Obama does not see America like you or I do, he's howling around with terrorists. Okay, we laugh now, but serious moment of the campaign, we were going to have questions. What we thought, more important on that day, was not what Barack Obama necessarily had to say about that charge, or Joe Biden, or people like me, or Robert Gibbs, or Axelrod, or anybody else. It was what our volunteers had to say about it. Because they were the ones out in Roanoke, Virginia, talking to their 6 undecided neighbors who they'd been talking to for 60 days. And their neighbor didn't want to talk about health care that day. They wanted to talk about Bel Airs. So our volunteers need to be able to talk persuasively about it. Think about that. That's hard to do.